Episode 34. So we pick up with Ursulon and Suvi again, just waiting in this room while Ame is off, I think, speaking to Marara. Or is that, am I getting confused? I'll get to it in my notes, but when I was laying the groundwork here, I couldn't remember where she was.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Yeah. In any case, Ame is off. Suvi and Ursulon are waiting. So for those of you that don't remember, Suvi has 2 levels of exhaustion right now. So she is essentially just like dead man walking, and she asks Ursulon if the witches do decide to join up against the Citadel, are you going to join with them? So yeah, that's where Ame is. I guess the vote is happening,
Right.
Or not. Why am I so confused right now?
It's okay.
Myself?
It's it's kind of like directions, but story wise.
Yeah.
So Ame has left to go to the meeting, but they know she's stopping to see Marara first.
Okay.
So she is either in the meeting with Marara or she's already in the coven. I think by now she's already in the coven meeting for the vote.
Okay.
And Ursulon and Suvi are like on their own, like waiting for the vote to finish.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And I'm sure I'll get to a line in my notes here that explains that. But anyway, so yeah, Suvi asks, "Hey, if they vote to go against the Citadel, like, what are you gonna do, Ursulon?" And he says, "No, like, I will not join them in fighting against the Citadel. Instead, what I think I'm going to do is seek out those like Moro who seek to harm and subjugate my brothers and sisters. But no, Suvi, I am your protector, and I will not raise arms against you." Suvi then explains everything that basically happened to her before Ursulon and Ame had walked in earlier. She explains about the identify spell that she had cast on herself, what she saw in that vision, the scries, the Gaius spell,
yeah.
Gaius spell, the modify memory, and she goes, after she explains all of that, she says that I can only assume it was the Citadel that did this and that I had agreed to it, and I have just like forgotten because of whatever machinations are in place. And she says, I trust them. I've never had a reason not to trust them until right now. So I understand why you're mad, Ursulon. I just don't want to tear down my home. I want to save it instead. And she goes, and I think I need to return home in order to do that. And she says, I think I need to do that actually right now before this meeting ends and before I perhaps am not given that option anymore. So Ursulon understands and says, okay, well, let me escort you to your ship in that case. So Suvi says that she's going to learn everything she can, and she'll do everything in her power to prevent the Citadel and Wizards of the Imperium from doing anything to hurt spirits. So Suvi and Ursulon have this like kind of sweet heart-to-heart moment. They embrace, not knowing when they'll see each other again. And Suvi then boards her ship. Really heartfelt moment that I'm not doing justice, but like Suvi tells Ursulon that she'd like burn down the world to come reach him if he needed her. And they both just talk about how much they mean to one another. But Suvi leaves to board her ship, and Ursulon decides, well, I'm going to go try to find the Antivolist. And if you recall, as soon as, all right, that hasn't happened yet. Sorry. So he goes to find the Antivolist, and he finds her. And there's this really funny scene of Tefmet basically trying to stuff equipment into a bag of holding, but is having a really hard time. And the long and the short of it is Ursulon uses his strength to kind of help force the items down. And then he casts like a divine sense while he's in this room just to get like pings on what's going on. And one thing is he notices a ping from the pocket watch that he's carrying, the one that the stranger, the man in black, gave him. And Ursulon asks Tefmet, hey, do you know about any other great spirits that have been bound? And Tefmet says, no, like you are the one that provided us with the first bit of like actionable evidence that had happened with Naram. We just know that they've been like researching those things. And then Ursulon basically says, well, hey, like, I want to help free other subjugated spirits. Like, so can we like work together on this? And Tefmet's like, I don't know if I can trust you. Like you literally walked in here with Ame, who lied to her sisters, and with Suvi, who works for the Citadel. So like, how do I know that I can trust you? And and whose team are you on? And Ursula says, I'm just on my own team. Like, yes, I want to protect Suvi and Ame, but like that's just because we're friends from childhood. Like I have no allegiances to either of their factions. I am just doing this for me. And I think he rolls like a really high persuasion in this moment or somewhere in this scene. And it might have even been a nat 20 actually. I think. But he says, so if you help me, Tefmet, you're only helping me. You're not helping Ame. You're not helping Suvi. And I again believe he rolls a nat 20 here. So Tefmet believes him and is willing to and says, you know what? The hour of risks is upon us. So why not? And it's at this point that Tefmet pulls out this piece of parchment, asks for Ursulon's name, or at least the name he travels by. And he says, Bear. The strongest man in Silbury. And Tefmet writes this down, performs some magic, and says the word Norwara, and then hands this parchment to Ursulon and says, make your way to the free roads to the south, board any locomotive headed to any direction. Keep this ticket, which this piece of paper now resembles a ticket, keep this ticket with you in your papers, like as you board, and then just listen while you're on this train. And at some point, you and only you will hear the announcement of the destination of Norwara, and that's when you need to depart the train. And only bring those with you whom you can trust if you're going to bring anybody with you. She says that it would be an honor to help him in helping free spirits and, to good luck, basically. But before Ursulon leaves, he inspects some of the other things in this room, including the discs that help to subjugate Naram at the derrick. And he realizes in looking at these discs that they've been magically altered, and that's how they've been able to subjugate the spirit. And it reminds him of his pocket watch, again, that the man in black gave him. So he pulls that out, looks at it, and basically there's this whole big moment here, especially because he had cast Divine Sense as well, where he realizes that there is a fourth hand, like a magical hidden hand on this watch, that when he uses it and accesses his spiritual breath with his divine sense, that hand will point toward a subjugated spirit if there is one like within range. So this thing will actually help him on his quest to find his brothers and sisters that need help. So we then cut to Suvi, who is boarding her ship and basically says, hey, we got to go. It's time. And Rasper immediately walks up to her and says, hey, was the mission successful? And she says, yes. And then he goes, okay, well, give me the object, which was referring to the music box. And Suvi just kind of ignores the request and says, get the ship off the ground. Like, we're leaving. And Rasper is shaken by this because he realizes that Suvi must have put at least something together. Like Suvi knows that she was under the spells. Rasper doesn't know what to make of it, but he just says like, yes, ma'am, and immediately leaves and complies. Suvi goes to her room. Shortly thereafter, Maddie knocks on the door and says, hey, I know we're about to leave, but you had a message waiting that we couldn't get to you while you were in the castle. And I had to transcribe it, so I'm sorry, but like, only I've seen it. No one else has seen it. So she leaves it with Suvi, and it's basically a message from Silver, who has been garrisoned in the town of Abaddon. He tells her that Fort Kieran has been retaken, and forces are set to meet at a bridge over the over the river Lythwin in 2 days. And that name sounds familiar, but Suvi can't quite place it. She then basically pulls out all of her maps and tries to triangulate and pinpoint exactly what she can learn about forced movements and stuff from what Silver had told her. And the ship is off, headed to the Citadel. And that's where, well, it's not where we break, but that's where I'll toss it over to you for the second half.
So great job, Will. The second half is an hour long, but it feels like 2 because so much happens. Yeah. And in the great words of our friend Brennan Lee Mulligan, buckle up because quite a bit is going to happen. We cut back to Ame, who's still in the Palace of Wind and Stars. Out a nearby window, she can see Marara, Hikea, and Grimoire, who are leaving the palace, and can overhear Hikea really like in full plan mode. Like this is a now reawakened witch and the founder of the coven. And she's immediately like making these plans and also telling Marara, we need to set up a plan with the man in black. We need to make this happen. Indri makes an announcement. It's very much like PA announcement-esque. I think her face like appears on the clouds, and they hear her voice basically saying, "Hey, thanks so much. Get out. I want some time to myself. You have 1 hour, and I would ask you to leave because I need to go." There's some comment about like going to her library because she's been surprised far too much in these last few days. So then Ami's like, well, I'm going to go look for Ursulon and Neef. Actually runs into Ursulon, and together they go to Toph, who essentially she asks Toph, hey, which if you don't remember who Toph was the coal spirit, supposedly, in the like bucket of coal near the fire in the abode of the World's Heart, the place for the World's Heart. Toph is sent to go find Neef. They have a little bit of time before they head out, and like every great D&D player does, they're thinking about the loot before this story ends. And Brennan points out that, hey, you're in the Tower of the Half Moon. And Erika Ishii is, oh, I know we are. I know what's at the top of it. And immediately they both begin to ascend the staircase to the top of this Tower of the Half Moon, where the Wand of Covenant is housed. They make it to the top. There's a simple magical spell on it that they use Wavebreaker to dispel. They step inside and they see a beautiful room with shimmering silver coins, trinkets, treasures, all sorts of things that have been sort of huddled in here. They see 6 pedestals that have glass display cases with an artifact under each one. And then lastly, they do see the Wand of Covenant resting on a bowl of frozen ice, of ice. And immediately they're like, okay, this is pretty cool. Looking at the items under the pedestals, and I'll just try to be brief, but also mention what these are. One of them is a mighty horn that is a horn of blowing. It's been partially scarred and is missing a gem. One of them is a large empty glass bottle, like one you would build a ship inside of. One is a small growth of blossoming briars that are going from a small red pot. The fourth one is a beautifully folded paper ship that's sitting on a book of folding paper. The fifth one is a grotesque and frightening molting pile of feathers with massive talons that have been severed at the thigh sitting on them. And the sixth is 2 doorknobs stacked on top of each other, resting on a bound and tied down lion's face knocker. Around this time, they hear Toph returning with Neef, and Toph's like, I know they're around here somewhere. And Ursulon's like, I'm going to go stall. Rushes down the stairs, immediately says to Neef, like, hey, I'm looking. This is also very peak D&D. I've been looking for the bathroom. Where's the bathroom? He has like a nat 20 deception check there. And then Neef has a nat 1 insight or investigation. And because of this, Neef is panicked. She's embarrassed. She's like, oh my gosh, a guest of our palace couldn't find the bathroom. I can't believe this happened to you. I'm so sorry. She begins to pull out a ring of keys to like hand a key to go to a certain bathroom. And in doing this, she drops the ring. They scatter everywhere, including like tumbling down a nearby staircase. She's panicking, trying to grab these keys. And Ursulon finally just says, hey, just give me all the keys and I'll go find a bathroom and then you go wait somewhere else. Persuasion roll with advantage, 21. And she says, well, I'll go find the rest of the keys that went down the stairs, and leaves. And then we get a beautiful moment from Brennan where he says, Toph basically, there's a moment of pause and Toph goes, she's a nervous girl. And it's just a perfectly like sums it up well. Ursulon rushes up the stairs, has all of these keys. They're spilling out. He's like, I think these keys will work for these pedestals. Meanwhile, the fox starts to eat the keys. And they're like, stop doing that. They can also, by the way, through the window, they can see the large like conservatory like roof of the library that Indri is in opening up as she's preparing to talk to the stars. And they realize with such few time, they only have like about 20 or 30 minutes left before they need to leave. They could only probably take one item. Ame looks at the knocker with the doorknobs on top and feels like this, I know this. This must have been from Grandmother Wren. And in fact, Brennan clarifies that all of these pedestals were actually gifts to Indri whenever she ascended to her role, her station of Wind and Stars. They open up, they use the key, they open up the pedestal, they grab the wand, and as they remove the cloth from the knocker, it immediately, like a party announcer, announces with this booming voice of, standing before me, here is a witch and a spirit and the witch's friend. And it's so loud that there's a nearby avalanche because it's just booming across this place. Ursulon panics, shoves his fist into the knocker's mouth to muffle it. And then they just grab the wand, they grab the knockers, and they just rush out. They run down the stairs, knowing that they've probably been discovered. This alarm has been sounded. And as they run down the stairs, they have a low dex roll, and they actually run back into Neef, who is carrying a chamber pot to give to Ursulon to go to the bathroom. And then knocking into her, the chamber pot flies into the air, lands on her head, and knocks her out cold. So very just like, oh my gosh, what do we do now? Ursulon lay on hands her, wakes her back up. She realizes what's happening. You guys are stealing. And with an insight check to Ame, Brennan reveals that Neef is going to be killed. She will be killed because of what the mistakes that she's made here. So they realize she needs to come with them. And Neef's like, well, no, I can't. And so Toph, bam, knocks her out as well. So now, knocker on Ursulon's hand, Fox is spitting up keys, Neef is over his shoulder, Toph and Ame running at full speed. They rush out into the courtyard where all the frozen statues are, and then Ursulon's watch points to one of the biggest statues, which they realize this is a bound spirit, and they begin to create a fire to try to free the spirit as an escape plan because they have the bridle that was given to them. In this amazing moment, Toph realizes they need a bigger fire. He throws himself into the campfire, basically says it's been an honor, reveals his true form as a diamond spirit, as was heavily implied, and essentially causes the flame to roar and break apart this ice. And they see before them a rock, which is like a massive bird. You'd know if you play Heroes of Might and Magic 3, that's unrelated. And there's animal handling checks. They're like, we gotta freaking go. And it's very much like enemy of my enemy is my friend. Like, okay, hop on my back. Let's get out of here. Meanwhile, they can hear Indri screaming thief as she has no doubt discovered that Suvi was in her library stealing memories from her. The Aurora Borealis fades. A massive snowstorm forms. The storm is on the heels of the rock and our party. We cut over to Suvi, who's on the meridian, and the storm is stretching out. I think Brennan actually described like a reaching fist, like trying to grab the meridian. They have to rush downstairs because shards of ice are peltering the ship. And when they get down there, the speaking mirror lights up with this emergency message from Silver, basically saying, I'm making a call for anyone who can help me to please come to this town of Absinthe, where he's stationed. We're under attack. Anyone who can come help, please come. And then the mirror shatters. The message ends. And Suvi's like, that's where we're going. Change course now. And that is where the episode ends, except for a little stinger, a little nice little thing where Brennan describes a man by the name of Osment, sort of like not end of his life, just in an older age as the watchman of this small town. His wife wakes him up. It's the middle of the night, says someone's been walking the road. Someone's been walking the road up to the gates of Holly Hill, the nearby abandoned castle. He makes his way up. It's the bleak of night. It's eerily silent. And at the castle base is the man in black. And Osmond is basically like, what are you doing here? This place is abandoned. Why are you here? And the man in black basically says, I've come to pay my respects. I've come to make an offer. And he holds up a shield with a hawthorn tree on it. And Osmond basically says, you're here to make an offering. And the man in black says, if you say so, will you give me permission to walk inside? And Brennan basically says that Osmond in this moment realizes that if he hopes to return safely, he ought to give the stranger what he wants. And that is the end of episode 34, Something to Remember You By, and the end of our third arc for The Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One with Worlds Beyond Number. And if you checked out this whole recap, you got to check out the whole episode as we talk about this. Click the link down below and join the Discord to discuss it with us too.